My dad hit me with a champagne glass at my brother's birthday party, all because I wouldn't hand over the keys to my 550,000 USD condo. And the worst part, they'd already tried to sell it behind my back. That's when I realized, maybe the real betrayal didn't start that night. Maybe it started years ago. Tell me, have you ever felt like a stranger in your own family? I'm Sienna, and this is the story they never thought I'd tell. The sun had just begun to dip below the trees, painting the Charlotte sky in strokes of tangerine and lavender. As I pulled up to the gated driveway of my parents' house correction, the house I technically saved from foreclosure back in 2013, I caught a glimpse of string lights twinkling through the hedges and heard the thump of jazz spilling from the backyard speakers. I parked my Toyota between a white Porsche and a matte black Tesla, feeling like a thrift store dress at a designer gala. My palms were already damp, not from the heat, from that gnawing itch under my ribs, the one that only shows up when I'm around them. The valet didn't even look me in the eye, just opened the door and handed me a smile that never reached his. "Name, ma'am," a young guy at the check-in table asked, adjusting his bow tie like he was guarding the Oscars. "Sienna Brooks," I said, clutching the gift bag a little tighter. He flipped through the clipboard eyes, scanning neatly printed names. Brooks. His finger landed somewhere near the bottom. He paused. "You're listed under +1, I blinked. "Excuse me." He turned the sheet around so I could see. "Brandon Brooks, Ava Brooks, David and Linda Brooks, +1 guest of family." My name wasn't there. "Oh," I managed my smile tight. "Well, guess I'm the lucky +1 then, huh?" He laughed awkwardly. "Would you like me to handwrite your name on a tag?" "No," I said quickly, pinning the generic guest badge to my chest right over my heart. "It's fine." But it wasn't. God, it wasn't. I stepped through the archway of balloon garlands and into the house where I grew up, sort of. The foyer had been transformed. The hardwood floors gleamed like new money. A jazz quartet played in the far corner. Servers in white gloves offered smoked salmon crostinis and chilled flutes of Prosecco. And there I was, the +1 daughter. I passed by old family friends, Mrs. Galen from next door, Mr. Hawkins from Dad's golf club. They glanced, smiled vaguely, then moved on like I was just someone's assistant. I spotted Ava Brandon's wife across the room. She was glowing, literally. Probably something to do with the gold-threaded maxi dress and second trimester pregnancy glow. She laughed with a group of Brandon's colleagues perfectly positioned under the chandelier, champagne in hand. She didn't see me, or maybe she did, and chose not to. I forced myself to move forward each step, heavier than the last. It was like walking through syrup-thick, sticky slow. And then I saw them, my parents, Linda and David Brooks, standing near the fireplace like campaign managers working the donor line. Mom in her signature cream blazer and Pearl's hair shellacked to perfection. Dad sipping whiskey, his watch, catching the light like it had something to prove. "David," she was saying to a man I didn't recognize, "Brandon just closed a $1.2 million contract last quarter. He's already regional VP, you know." "Impressive," the man replied. I waited for them to notice me, to turn, to smile, to say, "Hi, sweetie, you look beautiful. We're glad you came." They didn't. They looked through me. My throat tightened, but I walked toward the dining room past silk-covered tables and flower arrangements big enough to hide a car behind. I finally found my seat, table 16, in the back, behind a potted ficus, right next to the kitchen doors where waiters rushed in and out shouting hot plate and corner. My name wasn't on the place card, just a blank white card that said guest. I pulled out the chair slowly, letting the fabric of my dress catch for a moment, like the universe wanted to trip me one last time. And then I saw it right there on the plate. The napkin, folded into a swan, sort of. It looked tired, like it had started as a swan, but gave up halfway through and decided to become a sad duck instead. I adjusted it out of instinct, smoothing one wing, straightening the tail, trying to make something beautiful out of something forgotten. And that's when it hit me. How can you feel like a stranger in a house you helped pay for? Flashback. I was 16. Brandon was already in college. Mom and Dad had poured everything into his tuition and new car. They forgot my orchestra recital 3 times that year. Once I left a flyer on Dad's windshield. He called to say it got rained on and he couldn't read the date. I'd played my solo to an empty seat, and when I mentioned it over dinner, Mom had just smiled and said, "Don't be dramatic, honey. You know your brother's finals are more important." Back at the table, someone's wine glass clinked nearby, snapping me out of it. A voice called from the stage, "Ladies and gentlemen, please raise your glasses as we celebrate the star of the evening, Brandon Brooks." The crowd erupted in cheers. Brandon stepped onto the platform beaming like he just won an Emmy. He looked perfect. He always did. Even now, with a baby on the way, a promotion on his resume, and the golden light of Charlotte bouncing off his perfect life, he still had room for applause. I watched my parents practically glow beside him. Mom clapped with tears in her eyes. Dad gave a proud thundering, "That's my boy!" No one noticed me. No one turned around. Even my cousin Layla, who once cried with me in the basement when we thought we'd both been forgotten, she avoided my eyes. Now her hand nestled in her fiancé's arm, like she'd already traded history for comfort. I sipped my water slowly, letting the cold anchor me. And in that moment, I knew. I wasn't invisible. I was deliberately being blurred, like a photo someone had decided to crop, the kind of editing you do when you don't plan to frame the memory at all. The first time Brandon was called a genius, he was 7 years old. He solved a Rubik's Cube in under 2 minutes at a church picnic while our cousin Robbie was still figuring out how to open his juice box. The applause was thunderous. My mom clutched her chest like someone had proposed. I was 5, and I was holding a crayon drawing of our family stick figures' mismatched legs and a crooked sun. No one looked at it, not even for a second. That pretty much set the tone for the next 2 decades. Back at the party, I watched Brandon from across the ballroom. He moved from guest to guest like a seasoned politician, shaking hands, throwing back his head in laughter at just the right moments. He looked effortless, flawless suit, custom loafers. That smirk he inherited from Dad, charming in a way that always meant trouble for somebody else. I took a sip of flat champagne and let my gaze follow him. Regional VP before 35, married to a walking Pinterest board, first baby on the way. Meanwhile, me single, slightly anxious, one burnout away from using PTO to cry in my closet. I leaned back in my chair, the one still wobbling slightly from the uneven floorboard, table 16, where unwanted cousins and awkward college friends go to die. A voice beside me startled me. "You know, you really look like your mom." I turned. It was Mr. Hallstrom, one of Dad's old law school friends. Balding, red-faced, and always smelling faintly of leather and cologne that hadn't been trendy since the 90s. "Yeah," I said flatly, "I get that a lot." He sipped his whiskey, unaware he was stepping on an emotional landmine. "Funny how Brandon got all of David's brains and your mother's looks? That boy's a jackpot." Jackpot, I thought, forcing a smile. Like I was the leftover scratch-off ticket that nobody bothered to check. Later in the restroom, the only place in the house that didn't smell like truffle oil, I stood at the sink and stared at my reflection. Same face I saw every morning, but under this light, with this dress clinging a little too tight and this lipstick a little too faded, I looked like someone who was trying, and still somehow falling short. I splashed cold water on my wrists and let the memories creep in, slow, familiar, bitter. Flashback. 7 years ago, Brandon was broke. Not just low on cash flatlined. His startup had flopped, his credit cards were maxed, and his landlord was 3 days away from throwing his couch into the alley. He called me at 2:14 a.m. "See, I hate asking, but I need help, just until I find my footing again." I wired him $30,000 the next morning. He never asked where I got it. Never knew I sold my car and took on an extra freelancing gig just to make rent that year. He thanked me in a 2-line text. No emoji. Flashback fades. A knock came at the bathroom door. "Hey, someone's waiting out here." "Coming!" I called back, voice tight. I stepped out and walked back toward the crowd, toward the golden boy basking in his spotlight. Brandon was standing with a group of investors, laughing, shaking hands, sipping top-shelf whiskey. He didn't even glance in my direction, so I watched him. Watched the way his hands moved when he spoke, how he said "my team" when referring to 3 guys who hadn't been paid in months, how he used words like scalability and pivot as if they were magic spells. I wondered if anyone else noticed how shiny everything looked and how hollow it sounded. Later that evening, I overheard a hushed conversation between Mom and one of the neighbors. "Well, of course Brandon's getting the condo," she said. I froze. The woman asked something I couldn't hear it, and Mom's response was a soft, loaded laugh. "It just makes sense. I mean, Sienna doesn't need that much space. She's always off traveling, alone." There was a pause. Then the woman's voice again. "So she's giving it to him?" Another laugh. "Not yet." I gripped the back of a dining chair so hard the wood groaned beneath my fingers. Not yet. What does that even mean? That's when the pieces started shifting. The staged introduction at the party, the +1 listing, the strategic seating, the side glances, the awkward silences. This wasn't just favoritism anymore. It was something else, something bigger, something planned. I left the ballroom and stepped out into the garden, needing air. The night had turned cool. String lights swayed in the wind above me. A few guests were lingering near the fire pit, sipping wine and taking selfies. I stood at the edge of the lawn and whispered more to myself than anyone, "They're setting me up." Then I looked back at the house, the laughter echoing off the walls, the champagne still flowing like loyalty could be bought by the bottle. I felt it in my chest. This wasn't about money. It never had been. It was about value. And in this family, mine had always been conditional. The toast was supposed to be simple. Maybe a few warm words, a round of applause, another round of champagne, but nothing. And I mean nothing about my family ever stayed simple for long. The ballroom lights dimmed just slightly, and the chatter melted into a hush, like someone had turned down the volume on a life I didn't quite belong to. A spotlight flickered onto the small stage. It caught the shimmer of Ava's dress, first her hand resting over her growing belly, then landed on Brandon, who stood center stage with that same practiced smile that always made people forgive him before he even spoke. And then the mic squealed. My stomach flipped. "Ladies and gentlemen," a man's voice boomed. It was Dad's. "We want to thank you all for joining us to celebrate our son tonight. Brandon is the pride of our family, our light, our future." The crowd clapped. Mom stood beside him, glowing like a woman who'd just won mayor. But before dessert, she added with a bright, almost rehearsed tone, "We have a very special surprise." I felt a tap on my shoulder. A waiter nodded toward the stage. "You're up?" he whispered. My heart stuttered. "What?" Dad grinned. "Sienna, sweetheart, come join us." For a moment I didn't move. My hands went cold. My chest tightened. Every eye in the room turned toward me, waiting, expecting, and I thought, "Run. Just run. Get your purse. Leave. Slip out the back like you were never here." But my legs didn't move. Neither did time. It just hung there, heavy still, like a second that didn't want to end. I rose slowly, brushing my dress with trembling hands, and made my way to the stage, heels clicking too loud against marble, breath too shallow, vision too sharp. When I got to the mic, my mom gave me a smile, all teeth, no warmth, and said, "You've always been the thoughtful one, darling. And tonight you've prepared something very special for your brother. Haven't you?" I blinked. What? She kept smiling. "Oh, come on, don't be shy." I looked at Brandon. He didn't smile, didn't nod, just looked away. That's when it hit me. They rehearsed this without me. My throat was dry, the mic buzzing quietly in my hand. I glanced out at the crowd. 80 faces stared back, champagne in hand, eyes twinkling with anticipation. I was supposed to say something. Something generous. Mom stepped in. Why don't I help then with the smoothness of a woman who's planned every word? She turned to the crowd and said, "Tonight, as a symbol of love." of unity, of what family really means. Our daughter Sienna has decided to gift her beautiful downtown condo to Brandon and Ava as they start this exciting new chapter. Applause. It wasn't hesitant. It was thunderous. People clapped, cheered. One woman gasped and whispered, "That's so sweet." Someone yelled, "Wow, what a sister, I couldn't breathe." It was like the walls leaned in too close, too loud. Gift my condo, my home, the one I bled for during a recession, the one I bought after skipping every vacation for 5 years and eating dollar ramen on a marble countertop. I looked at Mom, still smiling. I looked at Dad, his arms folded satisfied. Brandon, still not looking at me. Ava, wiping fake tears. Something broke, right there. Not a scream, not a cry, just a crack, a slow, quiet collapse somewhere deep. I stepped up to the mic. My voice, calm, too calm, found the air. No, one word, one syllable, but it hit the room like a gunshot. The clapping stopped. Someone dropped a fork. A phone camera clicked. I felt the weight of every heartbeat in the room. Mom laughed, strained now, like a window cracking under pressure. "Oh, don't be dramatic, sweetheart. It's just a condo." She reached for my arm. I pulled it back. "I said no," I repeated louder this time. And suddenly the world shifted. The applause turned to whispers. The guests turned awkward. The warmth drained from the spotlight. Brandon finally looked at me, and what I saw wasn't surprise. It was shame. Not for what they were doing, but because I wasn't playing along. I backed away from the mic slowly. My fingers were shaking, my pulse pounded behind my ears, but my voice stayed steady. "Don't mistake silence for agreement," I said, eyes locking with my father's. Then I turned and walked off the stage. No music, no escort, no applause. Just the sound of truth dragging its heels across a marble floor. The second I stepped off that stage, heels clicking like gunfire across polished marble, I knew something was coming. I could feel it behind me, swelling like a storm no one dared name. People parted in slow, uncertain waves. Their eyes followed me, but no one spoke. No one reached out. No one stopped the unraveling, just whispered, just watched. And just like that, I was no longer a daughter. I was a scene. I made it to the back hallway past the dessert table, lined with tiramisu shooters and overpriced macarons, when I heard the voice, "Sienna, Dad." I froze. The kind of freeze that isn't fear, not yet, but something sharper, older, something that starts in your spine. I turned slowly. He stood 10 feet away beside the champagne bar, fists clenched at his sides, eyes cold enough to burn. Behind him, Mom was already shaking her head like this was my fault, like I'd knocked over the birthday cake. She hissed something under her breath. I caught one word, disgrace. I tried to step around them, just one step. One, "Don't walk away from me," Dad snapped. I stopped, swallowed hard. "Not here," I said, voice low. "Not like this." But he didn't care. "You humiliated this family," he growled, stepping closer. "You couldn't give one damn thing to your brother." One kind gesture, I blinked. "You mean my home that I paid for? That I live in?" His lip curled. "Don't twist it. It was symbolic." "Yeah," I said quietly. "Symbolic theft." Something shifted in his eyes, a flicker of rage, followed by something else. Shame, the kind that turns inward and then lashes out. I saw his hand move before I understood what he was reaching for. The champagne glass, still half full, still cold, still dangerous. He grabbed it by the stem, fast, reckless, and then crack. White, then red. The glass didn't shatter, just broke neatly like the moment had been meant. The stem caught me just above the temple, a pop of pain, hot and immediate. I stumbled back the floor, tilting my hand, catching the dessert table, knocking over a stack of tiny forks. Gasps, phones. A waiter shouted, "Jesus Christ!" Blood ran warm down my cheek, a thin stream at first, then faster. My father had hit me. The room spun. Someone whispered, "Oh my God," another voice, female, sharp. "Did he just hit her?" Someone started filming, not helping. Filming, always filming. I reached up, touched the side of my face. My fingers came back wet and red. My mother didn't move. She just stood there, clutching her pearls like I'd bled on her carpet. "You ungrateful brat," she spat. "You ruined everything." Across the room, Brandon stood frozen, a half glass of scotch in his hand, staring at me like I was a problem he couldn't afford to solve. He didn't move, didn't speak, didn't defend me. Ava clutched his arm, leaned into his shoulder, whispered something behind her manicured hand. He just looked down, avoided my eyes, like he always had. The hallway blurred, voices blended together. My heartbeat thudded in my ears, a drumline of shame and shock. No one reached for me. No one rushed forward, not a single outstretched hand. Then a voice from behind, "Someone call the cops." My cousin Zach said louder than necessary, but his feet, they stayed planted. A woman near the gift table whispered, "She's being dramatic, right?" Another voice, firm and flat, "No, he hit her." I got it on video, and still I didn't scream, didn't cry, I just walked. Through the stunned crowd, through perfume and silence and 1,000 unspoken betrayals. Every step echoed. Brandon looked at the floor. Dad stood frozen, hand still hovering where the glass had been. Mom clutched her champagne like nothing had happened at all. Outside, the air hit me like a wave. I blinked against the cool night, one heel wobbling slightly on the brick path. I opened my clutch, fumbled for my phone, called an Uber with blood on my fingers. The driver's eyes widened when I slid into the back seat. He glanced at me through the rear view. "You?" "Okay, ma'am." I looked straight ahead, voice like gravel. "Hospital." And then... nothing. No one followed. No one called. No one stopped me. Just me. A champagne-slick face. And a family that had popped the cork on something they couldn't put back. The emergency room smelled like bleach and loneliness. Too bright, too clean, too quiet. I sat in the hard plastic chair with a wad of gauze pressed against my temple. The Uber driver had dropped me off without asking questions. Just a glance in the mirror, then silence. The kind that doesn't want to get involved. Blood had dried along my cheek like a crooked river. My pulse thudded in my ear, matching the rhythm of the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. They called my name. "Brooks." I stood, slowly, carefully, like I was made of glass now, or maybe something even more fragile, trust. A nurse in navy scrubs led me back. She didn't ask too many questions, not at first. She just looked at me. The right kind of look, not pity, not shock, just quiet understanding. She handed me a clipboard. "If you feel up to it, fill out what you can. You'll be with Dr. James." Her voice was gentle, like she'd spoken to 100 women just like me, and 100 more who never came back. I nodded, took the clipboard. Blood smeared the corner where my hand gripped too tight. Inside the exam room, cold silver sterile, I sat on the cot while the nurse cleaned the wound. She dabbed softly with a gauze pad, her eyes not leaving my skin. "Anyone coming to be with you?" she asked, not looking up. I hesitated, swallowed. "No," I said, "it's just me." She gave the slightest nod. "You're not the first." And somehow, that broke something in me more than the glass ever could. I leaned back against the paper-covered cushion, staring up at the ceiling tiles, toothpaste-colored, perfectly square, painfully uniform. My mind started slipping. Not drifting, more like flashing. Flash. The moment the glass hit my face. The sound not like in movies, not dramatic. Just a crack like biting into a stale piece of candy. Flash. Mom's voice sharp and cruel. "You ruined everything." Flash. Brandon, looking at the floor, like maybe if he didn't see me bleed, it wouldn't count. Flash. A stranger's phone pointed at my pain like it was content. The nurse pulled me back. "All done," she said. "You'll have some bruising. Might need stitches if it swells." She paused, then gently placed an ice pack in my hand. "Take your time." She left the room. I didn't move. My phone buzzed on the tray beside me. I picked it up. Voicemail. From Mom? Of course. I hesitated, then pressed play. Her voice spilled through the speaker, clipped, composed, cold. "Sienna, I don't know what came over you tonight. Your father was trying to make peace. We were trying to show the world we were united, and you made a scene, in front of everyone." There was a pause, like she expected me to feel guilty. "You embarrassed this family. I hope you're proud." Click. I sat there, ice pressed to my skin, mouth slightly open. Not one word about the blood. Not one word about what he did Just image, reputation, optics, another buzz, text message, not Brandon, of course not Brandon. I opened it anyway, stupidly hoping it might be him. It wasn't, just a co-worker. Saw a clip of the party on TikTok. UTF happened. Are you okay? I turned off my phone, let it slide out of my hand onto the metal tray. The ice pack was melting now, the condensation slipping down my fingers like slow tears. And in that moment, that sterile, quiet, too clean moment, something solidified inside me. They would lie, they would spin, they would protect the image, not the daughter. And if I didn't act, if I didn't stop them, they'd erase me completely. I sat up straighter, pressed the ice deeper into my skin, and whispered to the empty room, "They don't get to keep pretending." By the time I stepped into my condo, it was almost 11 p.m. The Uber driver had dropped me off in silence. He didn't ask about the dried blood on my temple or the hospital wristband still clinging to my arm. Maybe he knew better, or maybe he just didn't want to get involved. Fine by me. I unlocked the front door, stepped inside, and froze. Something felt off. Not loud, not obvious, just wrong. Everything looked the same. The lights blinked on. The air smelled faintly of lavender and leftover takeout. My keys hit the glass dish by the door, like always. But it was there, that prickling along the back of my neck, that gut whisper that something wasn't where it used to be. I walked slowly down the hall, scanned the counter, checked the drawer where I kept spare mail keys, USB drives, and my backup condo key was gone. I stared at the drawer, blinking, then opened every cabinet, rifled through my purse, twice, even emptied the contents of my gym bag onto the couch, as if maybe somehow I'd absent-mindedly stuffed a metal key between a sports bra and a crushed protein bar. Nothing. I stood in the middle of my living room, breathing shallow. They were in here, not a break-in, no shattered glass, no busted locks, just absence. Clean, casual access, the kind that doesn't force its way in, it just lets itself in. And then, as if summoned, my phone buzzed on the kitchen island. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but I did. "Hi, is this Miss Sienna Brooks?" "Yes," I said slowly. "This is Karen from Bright Oak Realty, just confirming tomorrow's 2 p.m. Walk through at your condo on Oakview Terrace. We'll meet out front unless you prefer to leave the key in the lockbox." I blinked. Walk through. "Yes, it's scheduled under your name. A Mr. David Brooks is listed as co-signer. Is there a code for the lockbox, or should we just call when we arrive?" My stomach dropped. I didn't speak, not at first. Then, "I never scheduled a walkthrough," I said, voice flat. "That condo is not for sale." Silence on her end. "Oh." Her tone changed. "That's strange. The paperwork has your name. It's signed. The listing is live." Listing. Live. My father had listed my home, like it was his. I ended the call, didn't say goodbye, didn't explain, just hung up and stood there, phone still in hand, rage buzzing louder than my heartbeat. They weren't just cutting me out. They were erasing me piece by piece, starting with the roof over my head. I dialed the only person I could think of, Maya, a friend from undergrad, now a real estate attorney. Tough, sharp, unflinchingly loyal. She picked up on the second ring. "Sienna." My voice shook. "I need help." Within an hour, she was at my place with Thai food, a notepad, and a voice that made me feel like maybe I wasn't losing my mind. "They cloned your key," she said after I explained, "probably during one of those family dinners. You said your dad accidentally took your purse." Once I nodded. "Yeah. A few weeks ago. He said he thought it was Mom's." She rolled her eyes. "Please, that's the oldest trick in the book." She scanned the real estate link I forwarded her. "Well, here's the good news," she said, tapping the screen. "Your name is still on the deed. They forged your digital signature, but they don't have full title. You can shut this down." I exhaled, slow, shaky. It didn't feel like relief. Not yet. It felt like war. The next morning, I called a locksmith. The guy showed up in coveralls, quiet. Efficient, didn't ask questions when I showed him the lock. "Somebody's been in and out," he said, pointing to fresh scratches near the keyhole. "See here? Like they didn't know the exact fit of the original key. Can you change the locks absolutely? Want a deadbolt too?" I nodded. "Yeah, add 2. He paused. too. I met his eyes. I don't plan on being easy to reach again. When he left, the new locks clicked shut behind him with a deep final sound. I stood in my entryway, hand on the door, and breathed in the silence. This was mine. My walls, my floors, my rules, and they just crossed the last line they'd ever get near. Maya's law office was tucked inside a quiet building on the east side of Charlotte glass doors, hardwood floors a smell of espresso, and unspoken battles. It didn't look like the place you walked into after your family tried to steal your life, but it was. I sat across from her conference table, watching the way her eyes scanned the papers like a surgeon studying a tumor, detached, focused, dangerous. This, she said, pointing at the screen, is straight-up forgery. I leaned forward. You're sure? She tilted the monitor toward me. There it was, my name scrawled in a font that was supposed to look handwritten on a seller's agreement I'd never seen before. They used your email as a proxy, she explained, created a digital signature. Look here, time-stamped. But it came from a masked IP, not your network, which means it wasn't you. And if we push this, it's criminal. I sat back in the chair and exhaled. Criminal. My parents committed a crime against me. There was something so fundamentally wrong in hearing those words said out loud, and something equally right. Maya pushed a folder across the table. I can file a cease and desist this week. We'll kill the listing, then pursue formal charges if you want to escalate. I stared at the folder. My name in black ink on the tab. My future trapped in a stack of legal printouts and broken trust. Do I have to do this now? I asked, voice low. She softened. No, but the longer you wait, the easier it is for them to keep rewriting the story. And God, wasn't that the truth? My parents had always been masters of the revisionist narrative. Brandon got a scholarship. No, they sacrificed everything for his tuition. I moved to the city for work. No, I distanced myself from the family on purpose. Dad hit me in front of a crowd. No, I slipped. It was a misunderstanding. I stared at the wall, clean, modern, unmarked, and wondered how many women had sat where I sat, torn between pressing charges and pressing down the lump in their throat. This hurts, I whispered. Maya nodded. That's how you know it's real. After the meeting, I stepped outside into the afternoon sun. The light was warm, but I wasn't. I pulled out my phone almost instinctively, half expecting it to buzz. It didn't. No missed calls, no texts, no voicemails. Not from Mom, not from Dad, not from Brandon. They had ghosted me, all of them. I tried to call Layla, my cousin, who once told me family meant showing up no matter what. No answer. Tried again. Voicemail. I scrolled through my contacts, a list of names that used to mean something. Nothing. Not one message, not even a fake, "Are you okay?" It was like I'd been deleted not from life, but from memory. I sat in my car, parked under a tree, letting the silence wrap around me like a second skin. The rage came in waves, then the grief, then nothing at all. Until my phone buzzed. A text, unknown number. I opened it expecting spam or a sales pitch, but it was simple. Just 4 words. From Nicole. Cousin Nicole, the one who moved to Portland years ago after a family fight no one talked about. She hadn't texted me in 6 years, but tonight she did. I believe you, Sienna. I stared at the screen, the message pulsing in the corner of my vision like a heartbeat. I believe you. Not, that's crazy. Not, are you sure? Just belief. Just someone finally choosing me. I didn't respond right away. I just sat there, phone in one hand, the other gripping the steering wheel, and let the words settle in the places where loyalty used to live. They tried to ghost me, tried to rewrite me out of my own life. But truth has a funny way of haunting the people who fear it most, and I was done staying silent. It was a Tuesday morning when Maya called, not with panic, not with urgency, but with something colder, calmer, more final. "You're not going to believe this," she said, her voice tight with restrained disbelief. "We ran a deeper property record search on your parents' house." I stopped pacing my kitchen. "What about it?" A long pause. "You still own it." I blinked. Once, twice, then laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was absurd. "Wait, That's not possible. I signed it over years ago. I gave it back after we fixed the foreclosure. Nope, Maya replied. They never recorded the transfer. The house is still under your name. Legally, it's yours. And just like that, the room shifted. Flashback. 6 years earlier. I was 26, working 3 part-time gigs, living off frozen dinners and ambition. My parents called in tears. The bank was moving in. They were behind on the mortgage. Brandon had just gotten married, and Mom said it would destroy him if the house went under. Dad cried on the phone, or at least sounded like he did. We didn't know where else to turn, so I drained the savings I'd been putting away for a down payment. I signed the papers, put my name on the deed, wrote the check. They kept the house. I went back to my 1-bedroom rental and told myself I did the right thing. Because that's what daughters do right now. That house, the one with the wraparound porch and the blue shutters and the kitchen window. I used to watch thunderstorms through, legally belonged to me. They'd never fixed the title, never paid me back, never even said thank you. And they had the audacity, the gall, to try to steal my condo, my silence, my identity. While living in the house I saved, I sat down at the edge of my couch, knees, weak hands trembling, not from fear, not from doubt, but from something unfamiliar. Power, not revenge, not cruelty, just raw, undeniable leverage. For the first time in weeks, maybe years, I felt the balance shift. They thought they'd written me out of the script, but I'd been holding the pen the whole time. Still, power doesn't come without weight. I stared out my window at the street below, remembering the feel of the hallway walls in that house, the creak in the 3rd stair, the little smudge of paint behind the laundry door where Brandon had slammed it shut after losing a video game when he was 15. It wasn't just a house. It was my whole childhood warped, yes. Painful, sure. But still mine. And now it was something else. Now it was evidence. Now it was leverage. Now it was mine. Later that evening, Maya sent over the paperwork. Eviction options, legal notices, transfer options. My finger hovered over the download all button. I didn't click it. Not yet. Because in the quiet, in the half-light of my living room, with my phone buzzing silently across the counter from yet another unanswered call to my brother, I felt something strange rise in my chest. Guilt. Because no matter what they'd done, they were still my parents. Because some part of me, the little girl in pigtails, who once got locked out after missing curfew, still wanted someone to call and say, "We messed up. Please come home." But that call wasn't coming, and forgiveness can't grow in the dark, so I stared at the documents, heart pounding in the silence, and thought they lived in my house while plotting to take mine. That wasn't family, that was theft, and I was finally the one holding the keys. There were no fireworks, no confrontation, no dramatic showdown in the driveway with suitcases flying and neighbors peeking through their blinds. Just paper, just silence, just 3 days' notice delivered at 9:07 a.m. by a uniformed sheriff with mirrored sunglasses and a neutral tone. Maya filed the motion the same day I clicked download all. It took 72 hours for the court to approve, and in the end, no one tried to stop me. No phone calls, no begging, no apology. They didn't know it was coming, because I didn't warn them, because I'd stopped trying to protect the people who'd never once protected me. The morning the notice was delivered, I was sipping coffee in my condo cinnamon almond milk, 2 sugars scrolling through old messages I still hadn't deleted, even though I should have. That's when my phone buzzed. Family group chat. Brandon posted a video, no words, just the clip. Grainy security footage from their Ring doorbell. Time-stamped. 8:59 a.m. The sheriff walks up the steps, envelope in hand. The door swings open. Dad, still in his robe, takes the paper, scans it, and freezes. The mug in his other hand tilts. A splash of coffee hits the floor. He turns, calls for Mom. She appears hairpinned makeup half done and takes the letter. Her face, I'll never forget it. Not anger, not confusion, but betrayal, as if I had crossed them. The key slid into the lock like it remembered me. The door creaked open and the silence hit me first. Not the soft kind, not peace. No, This silence had weight and edges, like walking into a room that still remembered every word you were never allowed to say. The house was empty, mostly. No furniture, no framed pictures on the wall, just a ghost outline where the couch used to sit, and one lone moving blanket crumpled in the corner like a forgotten apology. I stepped inside. The air was different, hollow, colder. No more lavender diffuser scent Mom used to obsess over. No hum from Dad's old desktop down the hall. Just the sound of me breathing. I walked slowly, floorboards groaning underfoot like they were reluctant to carry me now, room by room, memory by memory. The living room where Brandon broke his arm trying to leap from couch to ottoman because he swore he was Spider-Man. The hallway where I first got grounded for coming home 10 minutes late, even though I'd spent those 10 minutes comforting a friend after her dog died. The stairs, that third step, still creaked, same as always. The kitchen, that's where it waited. On the counter, plain, spotless, undisturbed, was a single envelope. My name, printed in all caps. No handwriting, no warmth. I opened it with a flat palm, inside just one line. This was never your home anyway. No signature. No flourish. Just the truth. Or at least their version of it. And for the first time in this whole storm, I didn't flinch. I didn't cry. I didn't shake. I just breathed. I folded the note, once, twice, slid it into my coat pocket, not because I wanted to keep it, but because it didn't deserve the dignity of being left behind. I moved toward the hallway, toward the built-in cabinet under the stairs, the one no one ever used, the one that held the forgotten things. I hesitated, then opened it, and inside, sitting in the center alone like it had been waiting, was a small crooked napkin, folded into the shape of a swan, or something close to it. It was uneven, the beak a little off, one wing drooping, the fold soft, now worn from time. I recognized it instantly. One of mine, from the party, the night it all came undone. I picked it up carefully, like it might crumble if I breathed too hard, held it in my hand, felt the creases like scars, not perfect, but still standing, still here. I didn't know why they kept it. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe they meant to toss it and forgot. Maybe someone even for 1 second remembered I existed. Didn't matter. What mattered was that I remembered. I walked through the rest of the house, didn't rush, didn't avoid the memories. Let them hit me slow, quiet, honest. Every chipped tile, every smudge on the door frame, every laugh still echoing in the drywall. And then I stepped outside. The porch was empty. The swing I helped paint when I was 14 still hung in place, though the chain was rusted now. I stood there for one last second, holding that fragile paper swan against my chest, then turned, closed the door behind me, locked it. I didn't look back, not at the windows, not at the roof, not at the past. That swan, it came with me, imperfect, crumpled, quiet, just like me, but real and mine. The truth wasn't loud. It didn't scream. It didn't beg. It didn't throw a chair across the room and demand to be heard. It sat quiet, calm, undeniable, waiting. I watched the video on my phone. Again, a tight edit of Brandon's birthday party crystal glasses, clinking Ava's perfect smile, framed in soft focus, a frozen still of me on a stage looking stiff, awkward, unhinged, and over it all a voice, Mom's syrupy sweet. We raised her with love. We never expected betrayal. Below it the captions poured in like gasoline. Wow, she really ruined a beautiful moment. Ungrateful brat. Entitled much. They gave her everything. Dozens. Hundreds. Maybe thousands soon. People I didn't know, strangers behind usernames deciding who I was based on a 30-second clip and a strategically cropped family photo. I closed the app, set my phone down on the kitchen counter. No rage, no tears, just stillness. Because the truth, it doesn't need an audience. It needs a record. I turned to my laptop, opened a new folder, named it simply, If You're Looking for the Truth. Inside, I dragged and dropped, piece by piece, moment by moment. Receipts, screenshots, Wire transfer confirmations, $5,000, $10,000, $30,000, all to Brandon. Just until things stabilize. Just this once, sigh. You know I'll pay you back. Spoiler, he never did. Then the emails from Mom asking if I could just cover the property tax this quarter, or Dad sending me an invoice he forgot to forward last month marked urgent. I uploaded the scanned deed to my condo, signed, sealed, stamped, and finally, the legal documents proving the house they'd been living in for years still had my name at the top. The folder was full now, not with rage, not with petty comebacks, but with fact, unembellished, unshakable, unedited. I copied the cloud link. No password, no expiration. I pasted it into one post. No hashtags, no headline, no plea, just, this is the full story. Read if you care to. I hit publish. Then I closed the laptop. I didn't sit there refreshing the screen. I didn't wait for validation. I didn't scan for likes, retweets, comments. I poured myself a glass of water cold and stepped out onto my balcony. Let the late afternoon breeze lift my hair. Let the sky stretch above me wide, endless. Honest. My phone buzzed. I didn't reach for it. Not right away. Just stood there. Until finally, curiosity nudged me. One notification, email, from Dr. Everett R. Blake, subject. Saw your folder. My chest tightened, not from fear. From something else. Respect. He was my professor during undergrad, taught journalism ethics of all things. He always said stories don't need spin, they just need courage. I opened the message. It was short. Just one line, saw the folder. Proud of your strength. That's how you tell the truth. I closed the email. Exhaled, long, steady, free. The truth didn't burn anyone tonight. It didn't ruin reputations or start wars. It just sat there like a lantern lighting up the places they wanted dark. Because I finally realized I don't need to fight their lies with fire. I have facts. And facts don't flinch. Weeks passed. The noise died down. The notifications slowed. The family group chat, once a constant buzz, went quiet, like a room where everyone had finally left, but the lights were still on. No texts, no voicemails, no backdoor apologies dressed as check-ins. Just silence, but not the kind that cuts anymore. This silence. It held space. The house sold faster than I expected. A young couple bought it, first-time homeowners just out of grad school. They were sweet. They sent a thank you card for keeping the original shutters. I smiled when I read it. Not because it meant much to them, but because it didn't mean anything to me anymore. Not now. The money came through clean wires and escrow and inked signatures that held no emotion, just closure. I kept what I needed. The rest I sent it out into the world. $25,000 to a women's shelter in West Charlotte, the one that helped a former client of mine rebuild after her husband vanished with their bank account. $10,000 to a nonprofit helping people fight property theft by family members, because I wasn't the first, and I won't be the last. I didn't post about it, didn't take a selfie with the oversized check, didn't wrap it in a bow or attach a quote about healing. I just gave and breathed. I didn't celebrate, didn't buy champagne, didn't toast the air. Instead, I cooked dinner. Just pasta, garlic thyme olive oil, nothing fancy. Set 2 plates, not out of habit, out of intention. Aisha arrived 15 minutes late as always, arms full, 1 bottle of wine and a tiny potted fern. You need more green in here, she said, placing it on the windowsill like she'd lived here her whole life. Maybe she had in all the ways that mattered. We ate slowly, talked about work, about the series she swore I had to start. She teased me for still owning a flip phone charger just in case. I laughed. For real. Not the polite kind, not the armor laugh. The kind that bubbles up when the weight finally lifts. At one point she reached for the last piece of garlic bread, paused, smirked. You gonna fight me for it? I leaned back in my chair grinning. Not tonight. When the dishes were washed and the wine glasses sat empty on the counter and the world outside turned soft and quiet again, I walked to the drawer near my fridge, opened it, reached inside, and pulled out the napkin, the swan, still folded, still imperfect, still mine. I placed it gently right in the center of my dining table. Let my fingers smooth the edge. It didn't look like much anymore. The folds had softened. The crease down the middle was fading. One wing sagged a little like it had fought gravity too long and finally gave in. But it had survived. Just like me. I stepped back, looked at the table, one plate still set, the fern catching moonlight, the napkin swan quiet, stubborn, unbothered. It wasn't beautiful, it wasn't symmetrical, but it was honest, and it was enough. Final reflection, I used to think freedom would feel like fireworks, like triumph, like shouting from rooftops, but it doesn't. It feels like breathing without flinching, like waking up and knowing I don't have to beg for a seat at someone else's table because I've built my own. If there's one thing this whole journey taught me, it's this: family doesn't start with blood, it starts with respect, and it ends where manipulation begins. For a long time I stayed quiet because I was afraid of being labeled ungrateful, dramatic, difficult. But silence didn't make me loyal, it just made me invisible. The day I stopped asking to be treated like a daughter was the day I started showing up as a whole woman. So if you're watching this and you've been gaslit into guilt, if your love is being used as currency, if your boundaries feel like betrayals to the people who raised you, let me ask you this: are you protecting your peace? Or just keeping the peace? The truth doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers and still moves mountains. If this story made you think, leave a comment. If you've lived something like this, tell me about it. And if stories like this speak to something in you, don't forget to subscribe so you never miss what comes next.